1,000 years of silence, and in an instant, hell roared. The chains broke, and the dragon rose. Gog, Magog, the final rebellion has begun. And the fire from heaven comes now. After 1,000 years of light, the wars had ceased. The swords were turned into tools. And the kingdoms, once enemies, now shared the same bread and peace. The air seemed to breathe holiness. The rivers ran clear between golden valleys, and the sound of human voices mingled with the songs of the redeemed. On top of a hill surrounded by timeless olive trees, the throne shone brightly. Christ reigned not only as Saviour, but as the absolute King of the restored creation. Her eyes, like pure fire, transcended time and touched the hearts of men. Around him, crowds dressed in white sang hymns that echoed to the ends of the earth. It was the millennial kingdom, the fulfillment of the promise. Those who had suffered because of their faith now reigned with him. Peter, John, Mary, and many others moved among the people, guiding, teaching, restoring what had been destroyed. No tear fell without comfort. No wound remained open. The cities shone under gentle light, and the columns of smoke which once marked the war had disappeared forever. But beneath the earth's surface, something remained. Invisible currents sealed an ancient abyss. There, the enemy, the dragon, the ancient serpent was trapped. Its body, shrouded in darkness, lay motionless. For 1,000 years, its roar was silenced. Only the sound of time echoed in the abyss. The tick-tock of a cosmic clock, waiting for the end of the millennium. The angel who had imprisoned him was still watching. A sacred flame was spinning like a seal over the entrance. Generations were born and died under eternal peace. Children ran across the flowery plains without knowing fear. The wild beasts walked among men. Wolves rested next to lambs. Everything was perfect, almost too perfect. But in some hearts, a seed was sleeping, the seed of forgetting. Faith inherited and not experienced was beginning to cool. Obedience became a habit, and love, once a living fire, slowly turned into a memory. One night, the sky shone in deep blue. Dwom, one of the elders, was walking along the city walls and murmured to his companion,
"It's strange, brother. Even in peace I feel the air heavier, as if something... We're waking up."
The other replied with a calm but firm voice.
"Peace is perfect, John. But the human heart is still the field where wars are born."
From the throne, Christ watched the horizon. The wind touched his golden robes, and his gaze pierced through the centuries. He knew the time for rest was coming to an end. In the depths of the abyss, the currents began to shake. A metallic sound echoed, faint and distant, as if the iron itself were crying. The underground rocks vibrated. The enemy's imprisonment felt the weight of eternity about to break. The next morning, the sun rose between red clouds. The earth still sang, but all of creation sensed something invisible. The birds fell silent, the wind stopped. The waters reflected a strange glow, as if waiting for an announcement. And then from the heavens, a voice echoed like thunder.
"The time has come."
The seal of fire over the abyss began to open slowly, as if the light itself hesitated to witness what was to come. The sacred chains twisted, sparking amidst the darkness. An ancient roar, muffled for millennia, was heard again. Christ remained still. His face was calm, but his eyes knew what was coming. He looked at the angels serving him and said,
"When darkness is released, the faith of men will be tested for the last time."
Far away, over forgotten deserts and seas, shadows began to move. The seal was breaking, and the earth was once again about to hear the roar of the enemy. The sound of chains breaking echoed like thunder across the world. The abyss opened and the air was filled with smoke, ash, and muffled screams. The prison of 1,000 years was breaking. The light that once ruled the planet began to be covered by thick clouds. Rest time was over. From the newly opened abyss, smoke rose like an army of shadows. Lightning streaked across the sky, and the ground cracked under a sound resembling the snapping of 1,000 chains breaking. The world that for 1,000 years knew only the chant of peace, now once again heard the roar of chaos. From the depths, a figure enveloped in fiery darkness arose. His eyes, red like embers, reflected hatred and cunning. It was Satan, the ancient enemy, freed from his prison. His burnt wings trembled and his voice echoed like thunder over the silent earth.
For 1,000 years they silenced me, but the heart of men never changed. I will return, and the world will listen to me again.
He walked among the ashes of the abyss, and where his feet touched, the ground became dry and cold. The creatures fled. The wind changed direction. And in every corner of the planet, a subtle restlessness was born in the sleeping souls. Men who had inherited the kingdom, but did not know it in spirit, began to hear whispers. Old voices, distorted promises, ideas of glory and power. Satan wandered mountains and deserts, disguised in misleading light. He appeared to kings and generals clad in splendor and said,
There's a throne that does not belong to you. The world is vast and you are many, for only one must reign over all.
In distant lands, the first signs of the rebellion appeared. Forgotten peoples, reborn in pride, raised banners and began to march. Cold-hearted men gathered weapons and proclaimed new leaders. The dragon's voice inflamed crowds. In the midst of the desert of ancient nations, two warriors watched the columns of smoke rising.
What is this? What force drives these peoples?
It's not strength, it's deception. The same thing that destroyed the world before the kingdom is back.
Satan was looking at the horizon. Behind him, vast crowds were growing, and the echoes of war drums were resounding across the plains. He opened his arms, and his voice spread like a storm.
People of Gog, nations of Magog, I call you. The time of submission is over. Move forward against the throne.
The mountains trembled. Oceans began to move furiously. The earth seemed to remember the chaos of ancient ages. The enemy now gathered the four corners of the world, calling all hearts that rebelled against the Eternal. On the heights of Zion, the angels watched the movement of the shadows. One of them asked,
Sir, why did you let him loose again?
and from the throne came the answer, like a breeze filled with light.
So that the hearts of men may be revealed, so that justice may be fulfilled.
Christ looked at the world and saw the armies forming. His expression was calm, but his eyes reflected the weight of the final confrontation. He stood up, and beside him were the saints, those who had reigned with him during the millennium. Pedro, with a firm expression, asked,
Sir,
The enemy rises again. Do you want us to fight?
Not yet. Each nation will make its decision, and then, when the evil is complete, the fire will descend.
As he spoke, the clouds over the land turned black. Lightning sliced through the sky like open wounds. From the north and east, entire peoples were moving, obeying the dragon's voice. Your number was like the sand of the sea. Caravans and armies marched across deserts. The roar of the crowds mingled with the sound of the forges relit. The cities that had forgotten evil were now building war machines. Satan climbed a devastated hill and watched the distant glow of the holy city. His eyes burned with envy.
Here is what I always desired. A throne above his throne. A limitless kingdom. A nameless glory.
Behind him, his commanders bowed and asked,
Who is our enemy, sir?
What stopped you from being gods? Today we will march upon your city, and the fire will not come from heaven, but from our hands.
The earth groaned, the wind became cold. And for the first time in 1,000 years, fear walked among men again. In the mountains near New Jerusalem, the sound of drums echoed day and night. The siege was starting to form. The plains of the world echoed the sound of war again. The wind carried ashes, and the sky, once blue, was now covered with smoke and black clouds that never dissipated. The nations responded to the call of the dragon. From every corner of the earth, armies marched, clad in armor forged in defiance. Tattered flags fluttered among devastated mountains. The roar of the crowds was deafening. Men and women, deceived, shouted forgotten names. Gog, Magog, symbols of power and resistance against the kingdom of the Most High. The sea boiled under the weight of the warships. The lands, once fertile, were now crossed by columns of smoke and fire. Amidst the mass of warriors, Satan walked triumphantly. His presence was shrouded in false light, an almost angelic appearance. He raised his arms and said,
Children of the earth, the throne that rules over you has kept you captive. Today, free yourselves. The sky is weak and the fire is ours.
The crowd answered in unison, a voice that shook the ground. The sound echoed to the ends of the earth. But over the walls of Zion the angels watched. Their faces reflected sadness, not fear. They knew the end was near. Inside the holy city, the people of God remained in prayer. Children held their parents' hands, and a gentle light emanated from within the crystal houses. The voice of the saints rose in harmony, and the song said, "The Lord is our strength, the refuge in tribulations. Even if the earth shakes, he is our King." Christ was watching everything from the throne. His eyes were fixed on the dark plains, where the enemy moved like a living storm. And the armies advanced once more, shouting, breaking spears, marching in fury. The sound of the drums became the heart of the world. The rhythm of destruction was steady and relentless. The nations surrounded Jerusalem from all sides. From the high mountains to the distant sea, there was no more empty space, only soldiers and smoke. The leaders of Gog and Magog gathered in a black tent in the center of the enemy camp. A general, looking at the luminous walls, spoke.
The speed seems impenetrable. How to defeat something that is not made of stone?
Nothing is impenetrable when faith is corrupted. What sustains it is not gold, it is belief. Break it, and the walls will fall by themselves.
He knew that the power of lies was sharper than any sword. Meanwhile, inside the city, the atmosphere was hopeful. Pedro stood up before the crowd of saints and spoke.
Don't be afraid. He who conquered death will also win this war. Remember, the enemy roars, but his roar is the sound of his downfall.
The people replied with songs. The city lights grew brighter, and the glow seemed to hurt the eyes of the darkness. A messenger ran to Satan and shouted,
They sing, mister. They do not remain silent.
The dragon turned around and roared furiously.
Then I will silence them with fire.
Immediately, demonic catapults were raised. Black flames cut through the sky and exploded against the city lights, but none of them managed to touch it. The flames dissipated before reaching the walls. The enemy looked surprised.
What protects them?
Satan replied, clenching his fists.
Something that the fires of hell will never be able to burn.
The wind blew hard. The clouds briefly parted, revealing the brilliance of the New Jerusalem. Majestic, untouchable, enveloped in glory. A silence swept through the enemy armies. A moment when even evil seemed to fear. Christ stood up from the throne and said to the angels,
Everything is ready. The siege is complete. Let the fire of the Father come.
A thunder echoed. The sky opened in a tear of golden light, and the stars began to spin. The sound of the drums fell silent. The entire world seemed to hold its breath. From the horizon, a glow began to expand. Slow, silent, irresistible Satan gazed at the sky and took a step back.
No, not yet. I haven't finished.
But the time was already determined. The heavenly legions were moving. Invisible to human eyes, preparing the end of the universe. The sky was trembling. The wind roared through the valleys, as if creation itself foretold what was about to happen. The armies of Gog and Magog, thousands upon thousands awaited the final order. The smoke from their forges formed dark columns that mingled with the clouds. Lightning flashed across the horizon. Everything was ready for the showdown. In the heart of the enemy camp, Satan walked among the warriors. His eyes burned and his voice echoed like fire amidst the crowd.
Today we will bring down the gates of light. Today the throne of the Most High will fall. No fire will stop us.
The response was a collective roar that made the ground shake. Spears raised, war drums, flaming banners. The roar of a world in rebellion. But above all, in the invisible heights, the silence of the sky remained. A silence that was heavier than the sound of the crowds. From above the New Jerusalem, the city shone like crystal. Its walls glimmered as if they were made of living light. The people of God watched in prayer. And the angels stood firm around the throne. In the center of the glory, Christ was standing, and his white robe fluttered in the heavenly wind. He looked at the smoke-covered horizon and calmly said,
"The day has arrived."
As the sound of their voice filled the air, a golden light enveloped the city. The brightness was so intense that the darkness around it began to retreat. Satan sensed the air change. A flash of fear crossed his face.
Get ready. Attack now.
And the armies marched. The ground trembled under the weight of countless feet. Fire arrows cut through the sky. The roar of war echoed like the thunder of 1,000 storms. The forces of evil advanced, covering the plain in a sea of living shadows. But before they reached the city walls, the sky burst into light. A flash crossed the sky, followed by a crash that seemed to break through time itself. The entire world lit up. From above, a pure and white fire began to descend. Not the fire of men, but the fire of God. The earth bent under the weight of glory. The lightning turned into rivers of light. The mountains melted like wax before the presence of the Lord. The armies of Gog and Magog looked up, and terror replaced hatred. The sound of the weapons stopped. The roar turned into silence. Satan, in the center, raised his hands to the sky and shouted,
I will not bow.
But your voice was lost amid the roar of the approaching fire. A divine flame descended upon him like an eternal whirlwind, and the radiance of judgment surrounded him completely. The fire consumed the legions in an instant. No sword was raised, no soldier resisted. The sound of destruction was like the roar of 1,000 seas. And then, silence. The smoke cleared. Where once there was an army, only ashes remained floating in the wind. The ground burned, but the holy city remained intact, resplendent, majestic, eternal. In the midst of the light, the voice of the Lord echoed clearly and undeniably.
It is finished.
At the edge of the devastated field, angels descended in splendor. One of them was holding a chain forged in celestial fire. Before everyone's eyes, Satan was cast to the ground, defeated and without glory. The angel captured him and proclaimed,
The one who deceived the nations will never rise again.
And then the dragon was thrown into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet already were. The abyss closed with a final crash, as if the entire universe breathed a sigh of relief. A new silence took over the land, not one of waiting, but one of restored peace. The clouds began to open, and a soft light covered the burnt fields. Nature seemed to be reborn in the presence of the Creator. Christ remained standing, watching the purified horizon. His eyes reflected compassion, not revenge. He reached out his hand, and from the soil it came back to life again. Flowers were reborn where the fire had passed. Rivers started to flow again, and the sound of water replaced the echo of destruction. The angels kneeled and sang a new song. To the eternal King be the glory, to the one who judged justly and will reign forever. Evil has ceased, love remains. Pedro, next to the Master, was observing the world.
It's done, sir.
Christ looked at the sky where the light no longer had a shadow and replied,
The judgment is fulfilled. Now comes the eternal dawn.